What if you had the ability to draw anything to life? To magically make your wishes happen before your very eyes with your own two hands? In Wish Hat Atelier, we visit that concept and not only visit it, we breathe it, we live it, we despair from it. I'm always on the hunt for the next magical journey. I'm a big fan of Magical Girl, Mahou Shoujo series, so it's no surprise that I would enjoy this series. I also truly enjoyed Little Witch Hat Academia, a fun witchy magical adventure original by Studio Trigger, and I've been chasing that high, searching for the right magical series that gave me the same euphoria that the series did, and Witch Hat Atelier fills that wish of mine. I feel like Witch Hat Atelier works really well to keep you questioning about a complex magical system, the laws of magic, the morality of it all, and if it's possible to have the continuous innocent love of magic when you learn of its dark side. Is it truly just when the world could benefit from magic but it's locked behind closed doors? But is humanity also able to responsibly wield magic for means beyond selfish? These are questions that reoccur with Koko, the main character, and those around her. After all, what good is magic if it's not to the benefit of the people, right? Or should magic be held only for those that can control themselves and wield it under the guidelines of their betters? So, let's discuss and dive into the magically beautiful and tragic world of Witch Hat Atelier. As always, spoilers will be mentioned, so do keep that in mind since this time it's a deeper dive than we have done before. We will be doing a summarization of the first 3 volumes to lay down the groundwork or refresh what we've read so far. After that, we will discuss key things that occur in the series and about the characters themselves. This is me just giving you a warning and a heads up, hence the spoiler warning. So if you don't wish to be spoiled or still are in the middle of this series, this is me just giving you a warning, and we'd love to have you back once you're caught up with all 13 volumes. So please grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea and join me on this magical journey. Witch Hat Atelier is illustrated and written by mangaka Kamomi Shirahama, published by Kodansha in both Japan and the USA. It began distribution in 2017. The anime was slated for 2025 but has been delayed to 2026 or even possibly 2027 due to the animation studio disappointed by the current quality of the anime. We begin our story with Koko, a young blonde bright-eyed girl with dreams of becoming a witch. It's well known that being a witch is a birthright, but the bit of magic that improves Koko's day-to-day life, like providing clean water and helping those in need, continue feeding her never-ending daydreams of becoming a witch. One day, a witch named Kifri arrives in the area and visits Koko's family shop. Koko's family runs a dressmaker shop, where they tidy up seams and produce clothing. Kifri muses that Koko has a large interest in magic and has quite the steady hand, which is an attribute that most witches aspire to have. Koko babbles about her love of magic and also explains that at her local fair, they had an odd seller that sold her a book with symbols she doesn't quite understand and a wand with a pen end, with the promises that they can be used to create magic. Before Kifri can ask more questions, a Pegasus carriage was broken and Kifri volunteers to fix it since he's a witch. This is one of the duties that a witch must do. They must help the general public with their magic. But he requests a secret place to fix it up. Koko and her mother volunteer their workshop, and Koko is in charge to stand guard that no one peeks at the magical process. Unable to control herself, her curiosity boils over and she sneaks a glance at the magical process and she's dumbfounded. So just to explain, the public is not to see the process of how witches enact their spells. This has been a law since the day of the pact. And we find Koko dumbfounded because it's that simple. Anyone can do it. You just need to draw specific symbols, hence the book that Koko had received. That's why it never worked, because at this time Koko was spouting out spell words, thinking that the wand slash pen was actually like, kind of like Harry Potter it up. You just say the word. But that's not how it works. Befuddled by this realization, she rushes to hand Kifri his goods and sheepishly says goodbye. Kifri doesn't push Koko, thinking she must be shy now, and he departs with his goods and camps nearby, despite the curiosity of finding out who the peddler was. Meanwhile, Koko decides that night to copy the symbols in the book. After feverishly trying to copy the spells, she is able to make many spells happen until she comes across one that she should not have. A forbidden spell is unleashed, and Kifri, being nearby thankfully, realizes it and makes it in time to get Koko out of the house before the spell engulfs it. But a price is paid. Koko's mother is crystallized, frozen in time, along with the house. Kifri asks Koko what spell she used, but even she isn't sure. She doesn't know magic. All she knows is the wonders and the beauty of magic, not the dangers or the implications of abusing magic could hold. And this is how she learns. Kifri attempts to erase Koko's memory since humans are not allowed to know magic nor use it, but she resists and begs for a way to save her mom. Kifri realizes that Koko has a connection to the brim caps. He decides to adopt her as a pupil instead due to this connection. The brim caps, we learned, are witches that use forbidden spells, forbidden magic, and have haunted Kifri since he was a child, and we learn is the reason behind his blind eye and the growing blindness in his remaining eye. And we also find out that they are the peddler, or at least one of them was the peddler that gave Koko the wand, the spell book, and the notebook. And at once, they are whisked away in a chariot to Kifri's Atelier, and this is where Koko's true training and discovery begins. Koko, distraught over her actions, is somber as Kifri explains the safeguard put in place so people can't approach her frozen home. His apprentices and Koko's classmates, Tisha and Richie, are introduced and disperse when Kifri requests privacy to speak with Koko. Once in private, Koko bursts with questions such as how to save her mother and about forbidden magic. But as Kifri informs Koko, we learn why magic is sealed from the public. Rather, why the true nature of magic is not informed to the public. Before, humans were allowed to use magic. Everyone had access. Everyone could freely make anything happen to their heart's desire. Nobles always had a witch by their side, free to use their magic at will. While there was such thing as a healing craft, there came the dark side of magic. War, forbidden magic. Magic and healing mixing to create monstrosities beyond our wildest dreams. This ruined magic forever. So came the Day of the Pact, where a set of witches created a set of laws for witches to follow, those who had access to it, and what spells became forbidden. Along with these laws in place, the general public had their memories wiped from remembering the use of magic. The laws forbade the use of magic on the skin, from witches learning medicine, attack magic, and anything that could affect the environment. While some laws were extreme, the witches thought of it being for the greater good, that it could no longer be abused. But a very important law was the witches were forbade from becoming a noble's witch. Like, you can no longer be a witch working for the king directly. With this in mind, Koko steels her resolve with the urging of Kifri to study hard to reach the Tower of Tomes, where possibly Koko may find the answers to save her mother. While Koko is fearful of magic, obviously due to a traumatic experience, Kifri is able to goad her to open up to magic once again with positivity, showing Koko that the reason that magic exists is to make people happy. After all of that, Koko is introduced to her roommate and final classmate, Agate. Agate is a bit of a prideful one, unimpressed and upset with Koko's entry into the magical world, knowing that she is just a human that stumbled upon the use of magic. She is unable to hide her disapproval of Koko. She challenges her to complete a magical trial. Eventually, Koko succumbs to Agate since Kifri is sent away to the Great Hall, but while he does, Koko is thrown into her first formal test away from Kifri's eyes and without Kifri's permission. Kifri is the one who's supposed to be enacting this test, not Agate. During this time, the test is difficult. It's one where one could easily lose their life trying to enact a spell to grab a flower on the highest floating isle. Tisha, curious as to where Koko is, inquires Agate. Agate informs Tisha of her plan to get rid of Koko. In hopes of taking the test, hopefully Koko will grow fearful and realize she should not be part of their world. Tisha worries over Koko, and Richie is nonchalant as we learn this is her normal personality. In the testing area, Koko discovers a way to reach the highest dial using her own strengths to fly high in the sky with a spell written on a makeshift glider. Upon Kifri's return, Tisha rushes to let Kifri know of Koko's location, and they rush to the testing door. Koko greets them, covered in dirt and bruises. She displays the fruit of her labor to Agate, who scoffs, disappointed that Koko is now an official witch. Kifri scolds Koko, though, and Koko kindly omits that Agate forced her to, and rewards her with official witch attire, telling her that she was always an official witch to Kifri. Oh, and I forgot to mention Koko gets a new friend, a brush buddy. A brush buddy is a long, fuzzy, worm-like creature with little legs. It's so cute. Brush buddies are attracted to magic ink, so they like to be around witches. Not too long after, Kifri takes the girls to help Koko get her own specialized wand. It's important to have a wand that fits well in your hand, since the weight and shape of a pen will determine the way the ink comes out. So off they go to the Magic Stationers. Imagine a beautiful apothecary-looking building, but for stationery. That's the shop they head into in town. It's adorable and cute. Agate is sadly still not fond of Koko, so she wanders off and informs the group she'll be regrouping later. Koko wistfully is still aiming to become Agate's friend, and Richie muses that it'll be impossible. Not rudely, might I add. Richie is just a sleepy girl, so she comes off very nonchalant and very blunt. The owner of the shop, Mr. Nolnoa, and his grandson, Tarta, run the Starry Sword, a shop made for witches to refill their ink and get new wands. Mr. Nolnoa informs Koko the basics of how ink is made, and then Tesha escorts Koko to another floor to pick a wand and pen. When suddenly, the brimmed cap, the one-eyed one, the one that was at the stall where Koko first got her forbidden spell book, is staring at her from the window. So she gives chase. Soon Tesha, Agate, and Richie are chasing Koko, worried for Koko when they suddenly lose the brimmed cap and find themselves in a never-ending maze with a dragon. Turns out they are stuck in a spell. In the maze, the girls are squabbling. Well, all of them except Koko. They all let out their grievances out on Koko, blaming her for being in this situation and for not fitting in their world. Primarily Tesha and Agate. Richie is still pretty indifferent. She is our unbothered queen. Agate hopped on Tesha's frustration since she still doesn't believe Koko belongs. Eventually, Koko is able to reassure and comfort Tesha, which opens Tesha's eyes and heart. Tesha apologizes for taking it all out on Koko and summons a fun cloud spell to comfort everyone, which gives Koko an idea how to solve the predicament and fulfill Tesha's wish to use the cloud spell for happiness. With Agate's reluctant help, they are able to make a comfy cloud spell for the dragon, distracting it long enough that it allows them time to find the main spell seal. In erasing it, it causes a mini gap to form, and Kifri is able to rescue them. But Koko is missing. In a void somewhere, the brimmed cap murmurs to Koko about how she will be the answer to their cause, and that she will learn more spells from them than Kifri will ever teach them. Upon returning to Kifri, she's unaware of what transpired, and she never got her wand. Not too long, and between the studies, Koko meets Ulrigio, a witch who is to watch over and protect Kifri and his students. Kind of like a security guard, but also cares for their well-being, so maybe like a buff, tough nurse, a Mary Poppins? A buff Mary Poppins. He's a fun, rough, and around the he's fun and rough around the edges. He also grumbles about work, but does what is needed to be done. But before they could enjoy everyone being home in the Atelier, a worrisome situation occurs. A flood. The flood causes a large group of people to get caught in a mudslide and injured. A father and son, Dagda and Custis, get caught up in this situation. Agate, arrogantly thinking she can do what a trained witch can do, attempts to do more but realizes with the laws and all she knows, there isn't much. But Koko snaps her out of it, reminding her of what a witch needs to do, distracts the crowd while Koko rescues herself and a Custis that is trapped in a dangerous riverbank. They both get trapped by the riverbank. The Knights of Morales, a set of witches put in place to keep the law in place and in order, appear and attempt to erase Koko's memory. Because, unbeknownst to them, the simple spell Koko casted wasn't a simple levitation spell, but caused damage to the environment. It's assumed that when the brimmed cap had Koko in the maze, they messed with Koko's ink. At least, that's the assumption we come across. Thankfully, Tesha, Richie, and Agate come to her rescue and protest against the Knights. Koko is able to prove the spell she used is not at all dangerous, and Agate gets to take the second test. While Kiefer believes she wasn't ready, the recent events gave him a little hope. Upon discovery of Koko's ink bottle, he realizes it may have been tampered with by the brim caps. The two head over to the Starry Sword in the guise of getting Koko's wand. Here, Koko learns Tarta cannot become a witch due to silverwash, which is a condition where one cannot decipher colors and everything is basically silver. So it's like being colorblind. This is difficult since it would be important to understand if anything has changed in the environment, such as color. The ink was experimented on by Master Nolnoa and Kiefer. Nolnoa attempts to tell the Great Hall, but Kiefer erases his memory in order to hold on to this lead. Kiefer makes an excuse as to why that ink is no longer Koko's and gives her a new one, reassuring her that he'd watch over her no matter what happens. But as the two walk away, Tarta is met with an uncomfortable realization. His grandpa does not recall the chaos that occurred and ties it to Kiefer. As the girls study, they learn there are 5 tests needed to become a full-fledged witch. The first test, the consent of the crown, securing consent and becoming an apprentice, which is the test that Agate forced Koko to do, which is usually some kind of request that tests your knowledge and your thinking of how you could perform as a witch. The second test, the sincerity of the shield, demonstrating your devotion to walk aside your teacher. The third test, the query of Vive? I don't think I'll ever say that correctly. The key shall come to one whose path is right. The fourth test, the goodwill of her grace. One stands unaided when hope is realized. And the final test, the fifth test, the words of the rise. Each test allows an apprentice, the first one, the right to choose your teacher. Koko was not given this right due to her circumstances. Second, permission to cast spells in public. You still need to be hidden, but you can help those in need, so you don't really need to be like, oh no, I can't cast a spell. You can actually just do it without your teacher needing to give you permission. Third, approval to attempt the librarian's trial. So the librarian's trial is part of the trial of tomes. This is where Koko is primarily going to go because she wants to try to save her mom, since the answer may lie in the library. 4. Graduation from your teacher's side, where most witches stop so they have freedom. So the fourth test typically makes you just graduate, basically. You can do whatever you want. You could become a teacher if you want, and if you want to do that, you have to do the fifth test. But if not, you could be like Ulrigio, who just stopped at the fourth test and just took no apprentices. And then 5 is the ability to take on apprentices of your own. This is where one can become a teacher or a master. Here we learn more of Richie and Agate. Richie detests tests. Wow, what a tongue twister. She finds them suffocating and limiting in the kind of spells you learn. She doesn't want to be told what to do and wants to stay the same. Agate comes from a long line of witches, the House of Arklium, one of the Great 3 Wise One bloodlines. They help run the library. The head of Arklium becomes a librarian. For Koko, her goal is to go to the library as well, because it's to find the cure for her mother, like we said. For Agate, it's because she wants to prove herself to her family. As Kiefer rejoices in learning more of the brim caps, Koko is having nightmares. Unable to sleep, she studies to get closer to finding the cure for her mother, hence insomnia. While Koko is battling her nightmares and studying, Kiefer takes an opportunity to mess with the ink bottle. Inside it is a medallion, a contraption. Contraptions are devices created by witches that allow the general public the ability to use magic without a witch. They're pretty expensive though and fetch high prices. Typically, witches will install them in villages so that way villagers can use them without having to pay that price, making it like, I guess you would think, a public domain. So the medallion contraption that's in the ink bottle that Koko had used, how the medallion contraption works, it is called the magic of the twin bottles. 2 bottles will have the same medallion or mirrors of each other's medallion in each bottle. And with this, whatever one person fills one bottle with will fill the other ink bottle. It could become a well of unending ink or whatever, and originally it was used for potions, so that way The other witch will never be without help, or if anything were to happen, they need to use a potion. But at the moment, the brimmed caps is using it to use corrupted ink and feed it to Koko. Kefri intends to pull out this medallion and put it in a compass, which is also another contraption, which helps find the original user of the other medallion, because they're tied. But sadly, he was outwitted by the brim cap and thrown into a powerful water spell. Unable to escape, Kefri succumbs to his minor wounds, and the medallion disappears along with its user. The next day, while both Koko and Kefri tackle their insomnia, Koko reconciles with Agate, giving her reason as to why she doesn't blame her for putting her through the ringer and proving to Agate she never tried to usurp her or tried to tackle her so-called throne. Disgruntled by this, Agate protests that surely she wasn't the only one competitive only for Koko to pass out due to a fever from the lack of rest. Kefri rushes Koko to the hospital, and at the same time of recovery, Kefri attends a growing fire that occurs in the town. Tarta somehow comes by in time and helps Koko. Here, Koko is able to help Tarta find his strength with a spell that allows him to see the original form of potions. So even with Silver Wash, he understands what he is seeing. This fills Tarta with hope for the future, and once Koko recovers, he promises to make her a wand/pen just perfect for her. On the way home, Kefri offers to find solutions to Koko's nightmares to her insomnia, but Koko realizes the solution to saving her mom may lie in how she fixed the spell to help Tarta, by making the spell upside down, sideways, or inside out. Basically the spell, but in a different way. This fills her with hope, and she looks forward to getting back to her studies and believes she will no longer have nightmares. Meanwhile, the brim caps seem to plot something and strike once the apprentices are away from the nest. As the days pass, we learn more about the girls and go through their trials and tribulation. I summed up the first 3 volumes of Koko finding her footing, the girls trying to become a family, Koko trying to find an answer to her mother, and Kefri locating the brimmed hats. There are currently 13 volumes, and we learn of Kefri's past and reasoning of why he needs to hunt down the brim hats. While I definitely love to sit down and explain more of the story so far, that wouldn't be fun for you. And I think this would just pique your curiosity more. And also, we would just be sitting through a very, very long summary. So I'd rather yap about everything that's happened so far with you guys. I hope you guys don't mind. So hopefully you're caught up with the other volumes, but I did think it was fun to do a little recap in my own tone, hopefully. So, like I said, I hope this piqued your interest and drove you to discover a new series if you haven't checked out the series yet. And that doesn't mean our discussion is over yet, so let's go talk about some thoughts, opinions, and possibly theories. While searching for the next magical girl series that would catch my eye, it didn't need to be in the sense of Mahou Shoujo. It could be traditional magic with witches, such as Little Witch Academia by Trigger or Wandering Witch Elena, all great pieces of media that have girls and women in magic, but not in the save the world sense. Okay, sometimes there might be a little plot about saving the world, but the point is they follow a more traditional magical world. Witch Hat Atelier became that sparkling new magical world for me. I was first introduced to Witch Hat Atelier last Anime Expo in 2024 to be exact. A friend of mine was going to a panel for it since the mangaka was there having her first panel in the West. Intrigued, I asked my friend what they thought of the manga series and what it was about. Needless to say, I was intrigued and hooked. A magical adventure with themes of morality and picturesque art style. You guys know how much I gush over the art style of VB Rose. With that in mind, you wouldn't be surprised by how enamored I became with this series. The girls are always faced with moral obstacles, and with these obstacles they question what magic is truly for. Is magic really to be ripped away from public eyes? Is it right that it's limited to a select number of people? Or is magic actually a boon, cursing civilization for decades, centuries? Each obstacle or enemy they face, they're always fighting themselves on whether magic was made to make people happy. Did I forget to mention that? In the beginning of the series, the reasoning of magic is to make others happy. Whether it's in life, comfort, or ease, the main drive of magic is to help those in need. usually restore whimsy and happiness in their daily lives, and as always, make things easier for those that cannot have or have difficulty in their lives. There's a section with the Knights of Morales where they bicker over the law of magic, how the laws must be upheld, even moments of betrayal, which I feel you must see for yourself. So let's discuss what each girl I feel represents and the lessons that are to be learned. Koko is our protagonist, the girl who got herself in this situation and became a witch. Her curiosity needed to be satiated due to her love of magic. Her love of magic seeped into her daily life thanks to the tools that make their life easier each day. Once the forbidden spell sealed her fate, crystallized her mother, and the brimmed hats come into the picture, we see a different Koko develop. From a happy-go-lucky girl to a serious witch, questioning the morality of the laws of how to save her mother if magic is even as great as it originally seemed. I love this kind of protagonist, the kind that is always questioning every step they take. With a character like this leading the way and also being an anomaly to the magical world, everyone learns from their perspective, or from her perspective. Koko is a curious girl regardless of whatever version of her appears. She's always questioning the world around them. This especially occurs when she meets Tarta. Upon learning of his silver wash, she questions how the world could be so cruel to him and how he could not become a witch. This especially becomes an even deeper moral issue when Tarta and Koko are met with a conundrum with Custis. Custis, as we all remember, was the boy who was hurt by the riverbank that Koko saved. He loses the use of his legs and must use a magical contraption, a walking chair that works like a wheelchair, but instead of wheels, it has magical legs that walk. Tarta and Koko find a solution, a flying contraption, a tool that works like a glider but is able to fly at will. This helps in situations where Custis cannot use the wooden chair, since the foot can trip over roots or uneven pathways, or might have difficulty in the rain. But not too long after, Custis is faced with an ultimatum while being deceived by a brimmed cap. This sends the two into a spiral of rights and wrongs. But Koko isn't the only one learning. Agate is also working on letting go of past prejudices as well. Originally from a famous family, but estranged for not being superb in a sense, she learns from Koko that they're not so different. Originally having a haughty attitude and thinking a normal human wouldn't be able to assimilate to their world, she's proven wrong and gains a wonderful ally. With Agate, we see her tackle her own downfalls and ego. Ego is the biggest hurdle for this girl. She still is battling it, but also the hunger to be acknowledged by her own family. So we also see the desperate need and desires of being acknowledged by those that really won't give her the time of day. I feel like a lot of people could relate to also this kind of situation where there's someone you really, really look up to. In this case is Agate's mom, her family specifically, mostly her mom. And she just really, really wants to be acknowledged and be seen for a powerful witch, or to be acknowledged as an actual member of the House of Arklum. After Agate, we also see Tesh's journey. Originally, she portrays herself as a sweet girl, which she is, but she also is upset with Koko. She does initially blame Koko for bringing her into the mess during the first runaround with the brim cap. She didn't know that it was a brim cap, but she blames her for being stuck in the maze with the dragon, but learns to be more compassionate and understanding after realizing the error of her ways. She's the more empathetic figure of the group. Various volumes later, she's thrown into moral conundrums, one of which she keeps to herself and finds herself torn over. And I can't blame her. Over time, she shines and finds herself in not only a moral dilemma, but a political one. It's where it's explained to us the issues of magics and politics intertwining. In Volume 5, to go back, the group is split up where Kifri is with Tesha and Koko, while Agate, Richie, and Uni, another apprentice witch, are taking the second test with another witch/proctor, Elira. Here, Tesha and Koko are met with an ancient foe that hates magic. At this point, Kifri is wounded and cannot help. These ancient foes are cursed for eternity and encompassed in gold, so they live forever in pain and are covered in gold. The only thing to save them is to provide them with the one thing they cannot obtain themselves: warmth. These ancient foes can no longer die in any normal sense because they are just covered in gold and cursed. They just wanted to perish like a normal human would. And the meeting of Prince Eolio Ezrest in Volume 7, where the prince insists on being friends, and while they become friends, Tesha feels a weird uncertainty with the cheerfulness with the prince. and a dialogue reveals of how the king of the past took advantage of their friendship with a witch. We're still learning more about how these two will progress moving on, but I can see foreshadowing signs of a power dynamic friendship, with the prince being similar to the current king who yearns for more power with his immortality by requesting the use of magic from the witches. Even near the end of Volume 12, she argues with Agate over the morality of holding on to this knowledge, the knowledge of creating spells, suggesting to teach the everyday people how to make a simple spell so that they can get their own water, their own clean water. This is definitely going to be an interesting arc for her, one where she battles the rules and her own morals. Especially since we found out that Tasha wants to really travel the world once she becomes a free witch, once she's no longer a witch in training. So with her mindset being this way, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what kind of witch she develops into. And then we finally have Richie. Richie is more of a beat of her own drum kind of gal. Richie was traumatized from her previous master, who was abusive and treated not only her but her older brother poorly, and had them strictly learn from the book, hence her dislike from learning spells traditionally. This caused Richie to have a rebellious streak and refuse to learn from books in general. She only produces spells that she wishes to produce until Kefri has her take the second test, forcing her to face her demons and realize her shortcomings. That learning by the book doesn't mean to stifle your creativity, it's just good to have a wider knowledge just in case of situations like the one during the second test, where the other apprentice named Uni, who becomes a close friend to Richie and also a possibly confident in the future, becomes cursed by a brimmed hat that transforms Uni into a dire wolf, and Richie realizes that she doesn't know as many spells that can help, because Agate yells at Richie to go get help since Agate knows more defensive spells or ways to circumvent the situation, whereas Richie only knows the spells that she creates. So this makes her open her eyes to realize, like, oh, maybe I do need to learn more. I need to actually read books to understand, and there's nothing wrong with that. Richie learns that her spells can be more than fun and have meaning and fulfillment. We see the use of this in the current volumes during the Silver Eve, especially during the Silver Eve when she starts selling her work and displaying it for the public. They have their own little stall where they sell contraptions. And finally, we are left with Kefri and Ologio. Ologio. Oh my gosh, I can never say his name right. I'm so sorry. Ologio is a watchful eye for Kefri's Atelier and has completed only up to the 4th test. The 5th is only needed if you want to take on apprentices, which Ologio does not. Ologio is a scruffy guy. He's kind of like a cat. He's grumpy but really soft on the inside and gives really sage advice. Ologio has his hands full with Kefri and the girls. There's not really too many lessons we get from him. He's just more like a childhood friend of Kefri's, possibly love interest. We don't really know, but I kind of get hints of that. And it seems like he's a very good confidant of Kefri's, but also Kefri can't always completely trust him. So when he confides in him and feels relief, he ends up erasing Ologio's memory instead. We see there's a very complicated dynamic with them, so it's gonna be very fun to see how this will develop. Kefri, though, steals the show for me. Yeah, I get it. It's another white-haired boy. What is this? A type? I don't know what you mean. Anyway, Kefri is a quirky master slash witch. He's very fun and personable. He stumbles and falls, isn't perfect, but also has an agenda. When he was a child, he had a run-in with the brimmed caps, causing him to lose one eye, and his other eye continuously loses vision over time. So once he learned of Koko's connection to the brim caps, he couldn't let go. There's also a thing where over time he realizes that Koko is in grave danger with them, because we see that she is a target for the brim caps. So for Kefri, he starts feeling more for Koko, seeing himself in Koko, and really wants to protect her. So that also adds another layer to his grudge against the brimmed caps and why he wants to hunt them down. We find Kefri to be incredibly stubborn and simple-minded. While smart, he does little to prepare himself in the face of a brimmed hat. So we do see that Kefri is a very, very, very strong witch. I don't know if he's the strongest witch. I don't think like anything like that has really been established, but he is a very smart and strong witch because he was trained under one of the great witches. We have moments of his geniusness comes out, and then a brim hat appears and he falters just a bit. He learns better as each encounter occurs. For example, the current encounter, we see him really fight back, and it's very interesting. And finally, we have the Knights Morales, which are the pointed hat witches, who are basically the police. They make sure all the rules and laws from the day of the pact are respected and executed. If they are not, they will erase the memories of humans that learn of their secret, or erase the memories of witches and send them to exile, an island where previous witches used to have powers but don't know that they had powers. They just stay on a little island. I think it's a fear of them learning of their past and finding out how witches came to be, so it's probably a way for them to watch over them. I don't know, it sounds very it sounds awful. Estes, Estes, however you pronounce their name, he is the one we have the most run-in with, and I believe he is not the leader but second in command to the captain. He's pretty strict and is serious, and since the riverbank incident, he has kept an eye on Koko. He is the Knight of Morales, the specific knight that wanted to erase Koko's memory, and also remembers that Koko may be the witch with the rumor of the crystallized house and the forbidden spell, so they are definitely very cautious with Koko. All in all, I have done nothing but scratch the surface on this ongoing and ever-growing world filled with magic, delusion, and turmoil. Since we talked a little in depth on the main characters, I wanted to discuss one major portion of the current arc, Custis and Dagda. As you know, Custis is injured and his legs no longer work, but alongside that, after the solution that Tarta and Koko created, Custis and Dagda decided to travel once again. Unfortunately, they are met with a gruesome fate leading to Dagda's death. Here, a brimmed hat takes advantage of Custis' grief and teaches him magic, making him an apprentice of sorts for the brimmed hat. With this in mind as well, Custis is spouting accusations at Koko and Tarta about how easy it was, how they weren't real friends for teaching him magic, the selfishness he embodies and feels, and Dagda's death. Here we see how Custis has drawn spells onto his skin and Dagda's skin, which is clearly against the law. Over and over, Koko and Tarta are constantly wondering if what they did is even just or right, and what Custis is doing just or right. To see someone dead just constantly reliving life over and over, it's a very gruesome imagery to go through. Tarta originally wonders why Koko is downtrodden and grows an inkling during their interaction with Custis and the brimmed hats. So it seems that Tarta at this point is starting to understand the turmoil and the inner fighting that Koko is going through as being a witch with everything she learns. But with that being said, there are tons of coming of age issues to overcome and interpersonal discovery. I'm sure everyone can find something to relate to in the story, and even if you don't, it's a very fun story that is just really great to discover. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to keep following the story. It's just so exciting. The story itself is carried by the beautiful art and storytelling. You will be finding yourself flipping those pages faster until you realize it's daybreak. Yes, I totally pulled an all-nighter once right before work. Sue me. The Silver Eve arc is so stinking good. I cannot wait until the next volume comes out. And with that being said, thank you for joining me yapping about a manga series that I enjoy each time I find myself looking at it. Yes, the anime is delayed until 2027, but it sounds like it's for the best. They stated that it doesn't look as presentable, the animation isn't how they envisioned. With something like that in mind, I can't help but appreciate the honesty and delay, especially if you're bringing something that looks like a painting to life. I cannot imagine the pressure. I hope you all enjoyed journeying with me through a little bit of Witch Hat Atelier, and let me know if you've picked up this series. If you haven't, I hope I enticed you to, or caught a bit of your intrigue, and that's that. I'm currently working on the next one on another. It's the spooky season, so I thought it would be really fun to visit a horror series, and another was one of those that I watched back when I was little, and I thought it would be fun to revisit, so this time I read the manga version, so we'll be going over that. and also bringing up the fact that there's a few differences between the original novel source material, the manga, and also the anime. Thank you so much for helping me hit 200. I'm really, really grateful. There's 200 of you guys, and I'm so glad to be yapping about anime and manga with you guys. I know originally I was thinking about including books, but I haven't really been reading a lot of books, and even if I do, I've been doing a lot of flipping, so manga and anime have been my staples and what I've been sticking to at the moment, so I'm really enjoying going through this hobby of mine that I haven't really dived into in a while, and it's been really enjoyable. I've always been a big consumer of these medias, but I feel like I've just really enjoyed coming back into manga and anime recently. I hope you guys have a wonderful day or night, wherever it is you are, and you have a good one. Thank you so much once again. Bye bye.
Sink into the